Genshin Impact is a game about elements. There's 7 different ones to choose from, but the game wasn't always like this. For 2 years, this one symbol taunted everyone during their loading screens. But with the release of Sumeru came the final element Dendro and a guaranteed Dendro character, Collei. Since we've already covered the starter characters and have begun the guaranteed characters, today we are going to play Genshin only using Collei. But before we get into the rules and anime opening, I would like to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Opera GX. It's their 3rd time here, and for good reason, because I use it all the time. One of the main features of Opera GX is their mods. You can go to the store and download hundreds of mods that come with themes, keyboard sounds, wallpapers, browser sounds, and customize them to your heart's desire. Or you can make your own. But my personal favorite feature in Opera is the video pop-out. This might be my 2nd favorite feature in anything ever, besides gambling. I use this basically anytime I'm gaming, except for those lean-in moments. I gotta be serious when I'm fighting Senora without healing. Normally when I play games by myself, I look like an idiot because I'm just sitting there with my mouth open, brain dead. But with the video pop-out, I can enjoy watching something while playing my favorite games, and when I die, it's my fault, not Bluey's. If you're interested in Opera and are worried about losing all your settings and bookmarks and all that jumbo, well, don't worry, you goober. Just go over to this little gear icon, scroll down to synchronization, and click on import bookmarks and settings. Select your old browser, and you'll never have to worry about losing your bad time simulator bookmark anymore. Download Opera GX using my link in the description. Thanks again, Opera, for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to the rules and anime opening. Here are the rules. We can only use Collei, and all bows are allowed, including the 5 stars. Now let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact only using Collei. We start our journey the only way we know how, by gambling. Since these guaranteed characters are not guaranteed until later in the game, we have to do wishes to try and get them. I made 3 accounts for this challenge. The first 10 pool gave us a Widsiv, and was later turned into a Bennett account. The second one gave us a Forza Horizon, and was later turned into the Pokemon account. And the final 10 pool gave us a Flute. My hot streak of receiving things I needed in the first 10 pool has now ended. I had 2 options at this point. Either keep making accounts and hope I get her from the free 10 pool, or I play the long game and stop Google from thinking I'm running a pyramid scheme by getting a 10 pool from the anniversary and pulling on a banner that has her. Which one do you think I did?
Outlanders, your journey ends here.
No, I'm just joking. Ooh, bow character, Collei. It's like poetry. It rhymes. Thankfully, we received our Collei from the summons and we could finally start this challenge. 3 months since this account's creation. To begin, we go to the first domain. OMG, hi Amber. Looking back, it's kinda crazy to see that the first elemental reaction they encourage you to create was one that wasn't available in the first 2 years of this game's life. Aside from that fun fact, our goal here is to climb and glide, since we can't activate the Pyro Pillar. This took much longer than it should have, to be honest, and I won't mention Collei's height too often since it's basically the same as Barbara's. Just know that they share the same pain.
Let me in. Let me in.
But thanks to Amber's emotional support, we were able to climb on top of the domain and glide over to the finish, which means that this bird is now ready to leave the nest. Our first flight takes us over to Kaya's domain. The only thing to really talk about here is that we walked on water for a little bit. Whoa. Lastly was Lisa's temple, where we once again had to use the invisible platform in order to reach our destination. With Act 1 complete, we need to be AR10 to continue, which means it's time for character analysis. Going into this challenge, I was actually looking forward to it. She was the character I was most interested in, primarily because she's a Dendro unit. But the last time I was excited to use a character, it didn't work out too well for us.
He's horrible!
So is Collei better than Electro Traveler? Yes. Collei's positives, her abilities, and bow. Collei's skill is the boomerang, which, I'll be honest, I didn't know was a boomerang until this playthrough. I always thought she threw her bow, but then I saw the idle animation, so Yeah. In my defense, that is a comically large boomerang compared to the one she shows us. The boomerang is neat. It can hit multiple enemies, the damage isn't bad, and the cooldown is fine. Also, it can hit shield enemies reliably, which is a very useful thing for characters that are not pyro in these challenges. Its only downside is that it travels in an oval and not a circle, so Collei would not be safe against a wild sea bear attack.
Don't touch me!
Now for her burst. It's very good. Probably the best burst out of any characters we've used so far. She throws down her puppet that explodes in a circle around her. The damage is good, the radius is good. Overall, it's good. As for the bow, archers have an advantage in these solo runs because they don't always have to be in an enemy's face to hit them, since they can play like a bitch. They also get access to the Sharpshooter's Oath, which might just be the best early game weapon. The only downside is that it means we have to do charged attack gameplay. And speaking of downsides, let's go over them. Exploration. There's two things Collei struggles with regarding exploring. The first is mining. She's a bow character, which means that her only way to break rocks is through plunge attacks. I'd still much rather have this in the casual squad. The next issue Collei has is one that isn't her fault, but it still has to be addressed. Since Dendro wasn't in the game for 2 years, there's a lot of things in Mondstadt, Leeway, and Inazuma that Collei cannot do. Again, it's not her fault that Hoyoverse didn't implement Dendro stuff earlier on, and from their perspective, it makes sense, but I still had to say this. And this issue also correlates with her biggest downside, her element. As a solo element, Dendro is not very good. It's down there with Hydro, honestly, but a little ahead of it since Dendro does well against Hydro enemies. And there is a lot of those in this game. Dendro does horribly against Pyro, Cryo, and Geo. Burn helps against smaller enemies, but it does absolutely nothing to Pyro shields. Dendro doesn't have any reactions with Cryo, and Geo, well, everything does poorly against Geo. Dendro shreds through Hydro shields, but that's kinda it. Against Electro enemies, it performs fine. Better than Hydro does, but not better than any of the other elements. Things were starting to look rough for us in this run, but then we received a sign in our 10 pool. A message from the gods telling us to persevere. If not for us, then for her.
You do it for her.
At 4.5 hours into this run, we started Act 2 by partaking in some illegal activities. We had to use this substance in order to get green crystals, since these places don't sell them for some reason. This gave us a new Ascension passive, which is the perfect definition of all right. If we get a reaction with our boomerang, we get a ring of Dendro damage around us. Cool. To begin, we fight an Eye of the Storm, which just consisted of charged attack gameplay. Afterwards, we completed the Fatui hideout, then fought a Ruin Guard. Collei may not have had the fastest time against this enemy, but I can almost guarantee that Collei was the Ruin Guard's least favorite adversary. We shot it in the back, and it became crippled.
My perfect ass!
All it could do was sit down as we kept shooting its head.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
After we collect the second tier, we hit AR-18, then head into the domain and fight a Pyro Mage. Thankfully, Collei was able to push this mage into the water because Burn was just not gonna cut it, I gotta be honest with you, Collei. After we blew up a Hydro Mage, we began the fight with Dvalin. I'm gonna keep it real, Collei did not do too well in this fight. She can hit him when he's not on the stage, but that's the only thing she really has going for her in this fight. It took her a while to break the shield, and once we attacked his head, we only did about 1/3 of its health, which means that after 2 more shield breaks, we beat Dvalin and finished Act 3. So we need to get ready for Leeway. Fight smarter, not harder. Wait, what? Oh! That's probably like the set. Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah. Boom!
Ready? Go!
Oh my god. Please. At 9 hours and 27 minutes, Collei is ready to begin leeway, which puts her almost 2 hours ahead of Amber. This bird has already retired and had grandkids since it's left the nest. To start, we have the deer's place, and we basically always had something to throw at these enemies. Whether it be the boomerang or the puppet, something was getting tossed at them thanks to the cooldown. I also would like to start something new here, which is keeping track of the highest damage number that our characters have earned throughout their journeys. At this point, Collei's highest damage is 714. Next, we went to the Zhao Tower and fought a Ruin Hunter. In the last video, we saw her growth from this fight compared to the first battle with Goku, and I can now say that Collei has fully avenged him. Because she was able to shoot that bitch right out of the sky.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
Afterwards, we had Cloud Retainer's domain. At this point, Collei started to take this challenge personally. She believed that anything Amber could do, she could do better. And for her first obstacle, she proved herself to be right, because she glided over faster than Amber did. It looks like there might be a new gliding champion in Mondstadt. Lastly was Mountain Shaper. I'll just keep it blunt, Amber had Collei beat here. Finally.
Rex Lapis assassinated? At the rite of ascension?
That ends Act Uno. To grind up to AR 25, we are actually going to make our way over to Sumeru. Following a long, treacherous walk through the chasm, we made it to the homeland. After another long, treacherous walk, we made it to our boss. Disregarding the death I experienced, this fight wasn't difficult once I learned the key to defeating it. Charged attack gameplay. These clashes just turned the game into a third-person shooter, to be honest. Dos! The game speaks Spanish. After we came across someone using one of my accounts, we crippled another Ruin Guard and hit AR 25. Once we ascend Collei, we begin Act 2 by going over to the cooking pot. This was honestly one of the most disappointing moments I've encountered throughout the character-only challenges. Collei's innate abilities were not enough to heat up the cooking pot. I tried burning ourselves, that didn't work. I tried bringing pyro slimes over, but they wouldn't come far enough.
Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
For some reason, our reaction called burning cannot heat up a cooking pot, which makes this something that Amber could do, but Collei could not. Next was the teapot. Collei did pretty well against most of the enemies in here, except for the Geo Slime. Normally for this part, I just try and knock the slime off the ledge, but Collei can't do that because she's a bow character, so she just kind of had to thug it out.
Yep.
Why?
Can you hear thunder?
While we grind up to AR 28, we do the neutered Ascension domain and head over to Cape Oath so we can fight Aleph. Since they took away our boy, I decided to implement the Aleph test. Basically, we just fight Aleph and see if the character can beat it in 8 minutes. And yes, Collei could do it, as well as add a new damage high of 1,229. Another thing we did during our XP farm was collect our Ascension mushrooms. And hot take, these are the most annoying materials to collect out of any character. They are so spread out from each other, they don't always come in a batch, and there's not many of them to begin with. That number also drops by 20 if you don't have everything unlocked in Sumeru. It took me about 30 minutes to collect 20 of these things. I hate this material so much, and it's the reason I don't have Collei leveled up on my main account. So congrats,
Rukashava.
Mushrooms, you have the title of most annoying level up materials in a challenge video. And before the Sino mains say anything, I don't have that character, so you don't need to comment about the scarabs. Unless you want to help the video out. No, it's not. It's Dia. To begin Act 3, we are met with the Anemo device, and just somehow, Collei heroically found a way to even up the score with Amber. I mean, you just have to applaud all those hours of training she must have done to get to this point. Next, we take on some guards, and thanks to the rain, we had a budget version of the Minefield team comp from the level 1 video. These bombs are so good and they make me so happy. I love bombs. That was satire, feds. After clearing my name, we sing to some flowers. Following that performance, we are now clear to take on Child. The main thing I want to talk about here is his head. because for some reason, my arrows were not hitting it here. Huh? Normally, this wouldn't be much of an issue, but since I'm using the Sharpshooter's Oath, I felt wronged for not being rewarded for my dead eye accuracy.
I want to be free of this pain.
Osaya was up next, and just like Amber, Collei also died on this part. Other than that, I just want to say that Kaya might have some competition when it comes to rain combat. Dendro does pretty well with consistent bloom. At this point, Dendro might actually be
far more effective in the rain.
After 17 hours and 52 minutes, Collei completed Leeway, maintaining her 2-hour lead over Amber. With the end of Leeway came the beginning of Dane and a new weapon that we can't use. Aside from my keyboard malfunctioning, our journey with Dane felt tamer than other characters' journeys, since most of the enemies in this quest are Hydro, and that's what Collei does best against. The Jade Chamber quest, however, was not nearly as relaxed as Dane's. For starters, we had to mine. Yep, and we also ran out of food, which means I had to fight 2 Ruin Guards with 2,000 HP. We did manage to survive though. After playing around this little water ring to bloom those guards up, the Ruin Guard community truly hates the Collei army.
For God's sakes, just give me the gun! I'll do it myself!
Next is Based, but do you see what element that thing is? Yeah. Grass Gang prevails. We then ascend our Collei and change our weapon out for good. I decided to swap our Sharpshooter's Oath for a slingshot.
Look, I'm gonna hit you with this slingshot.
Since we can no longer send the Sharpshooter. And it's crazy to think that this is the second time we've had to swap a weapon when we start Inazuma. If I had a nickel for every time I had to stop using a weapon before Inazuma, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. During the transport mission, I missed 3 horrible shots on this enemy. Okay, but how did that last one miss? Following the escort was the prison, and a special shout out here to this electro arrow from the wall. It gave us a reaction, which is very crucial to Dendro's success. We couldn't have done it without it. Up next was the battle against the
Shogun Raiden.
After somehow another missed headshot, I still can't tell if that one was on me or not, Collei took the Shogun down to a little under 2/3 HP. I believe that Chi-Chi still holds the title for this section, but that may soon change. And lastly, for Act 2, we have the archery demonstration.
This sucks.
Now let me ask you, dear viewer, since I am using a bow character, do you think I was able to accomplish this in one go? The answer is... yeah, the lightning didn't mess me up. So why did I phrase it like that? Dramatic effect. As for Act 3, we come across Electro Pillars, which Collei sadly cannot do. After placing a bomb onto Tepe, we make our way over to the Delusion Factory. This is when I started to dislike solo Dendro. Dendro was not effective against any of the shields present in this domain, which was surprising to me. It didn't do well against the Hydro Gunner, but the one that shocked me the most was the Electro Hammer. That's written as a pun, but I'm also being entirely serious here. I thought Dendro was supposed to be good against Electro. I wasn't angry with Collei. I was just disappointed. During our preparation for Senora, we finally obtained our first Dendro Damage Goblet. And yes, I mean the first one. This is including 1 and 2 star artifacts. This game was praying for Collei's downfall. The Senora fight was different from the other battles. Normally, we have to go to her, but since we have a bow, she has to come to us, which is exactly what happened in the Cryo phase. But for the Pyro phase, nah, we played like a bitch, I'll just be honest.
Cowards do that, and that is you!
I was not gonna play up close to her because I just did not feel like dealing with the temperature and the constant tick damage with the character that does not have a heal. So I chose to engage in charged attack gameplay, despite us using a weapon that does not encourage it. Now all that's left for us is the
Almighty Raiden Shogun and the Muso no Hitotachi!
After missing somehow another headshot, there's no way it was my fault that time, we were able to deal 5k damage thanks to our puppet. And the Inazumian's ambitions, that might have also played a factor into it. 24 hours into this run, and Collei is finished with Inazuma, which still puts her about 2 hours in front of Amber, so I think this might just be a done deal. Next up was the Chasm, which was not fun. I'll show you a picture, and you should be able to recognize the problem. The entire upper section of the Chasm was based around plunge attacks. We have to use plunge attacks to mine and plunge attacks to shoot. Now, I want you to take a wild guess as to how many plunge attacks it takes to break these rocks based off of this clip. I'll wait. If you answered 20, you would be correct. It takes 20 plunge attacks to break these. And there is a combined total of 17 rocks, which means the final amount of plunge attacks we had to do was 357, since we had to do one for each of the shooters. Once we made it into the depths, it was a lot less annoying. We took down a Hydro Herald and an Electrolector, who were both weak to Dendro. So far, so good. After some long, grueling battles with Abyss Mages that unfortunately are not all Hydro, we have to destroy these batteries, which we need to use plunge attacks for. Oh, thank God. These only take 4 attacks, so 16 in total. You don't know how good this feels. And that's the end of Dainsleif's Minecraft adventure. Also, we got a new unbuffed damage high of 2.9k. When we hit AR 35, we ascend our slingshot, but not Collei because there were not any more mushrooms. Inside the Ascension domain, I actually almost failed the challenge. Perhaps I treated you too harshly. Alright, let's start Sumeru now. We're back in the motherland, so let's see if home field advantage is real. Can Collei complete Sumeru faster than the other characters? Tighnari forces us to do his bidding by having us clean the Withering Zone and the tree. Wow. Literally 1984. I'm gonna use that joke again for the lighthouse section because that's all there is to talk about in Act 1.
Get this guy out of here.
When Act 3 began, that's when I started to feel sad about this run. Not because of Collei, but because of the bow. This was the first time since the Noel run where I've had to use a 3-star weapon, and it really shows at this point. We did receive a Favonius warbow for free, but just like the Sharpshooter's Oath, we can't ascend it. In Act 4, we went over to the hospital, and this part was a little awkward. After having a near-death experience, why? We had to activate the Dendro pillars, which we can do, but my unconscious took over. I was being brain dead at the moment and teleported with Dendrogona, just like I had done for the past 6 months, instead of just using our charge shot.
Embarrassing!
But let's just not talk about this moment anymore. Hey look, a distraction. It's me and my Bluey fit. And speaking of Bluey, it's time for Sumeru Act 5. Our first major battle in Sumeru was the Fatui Agents fight. We had the same problem that was present in the Delusion Factory. Dendro does not do very well against these enemies. It was a long, intense battle, since we were at 1 HP and still didn't have any food. Next was the factory, and it had basically the same issues as the last fight. At this point, I just found it to be funny because it essentially just halved our damage.
Come!
When we encountered Scaramouche, I threw our boomerang and quickly remembered, wait, I don't have to do anything here. Bingo! What? Then the actual fight began, and Collei joined the elite club of characters who were able to destroy the 4 Nirvana engines. With the end of Act 5 comes the arrival of Karibert and the bonfire. In the past, I said that there were no pyro enemies here, but I've got some good news.
I lied.
I found one. If you climb up here and pick this sweet flower, a Pyro Wappa flower will show up. I tried for a very long time to get this to work because once again, I really wanted a reaction called Burn to be able to light a fire, but unfortunately, we could not do it. I had it to where it mortar striked us right next to the bonfire, but that still didn't work. It would burn the grass right next to it, but that still just didn't reach it. I did this for about a half hour, and I think that for now, this cannot be done. As for the old domain, we come across a Cryolector. Collei's reign of terror over Abyss Heralds / Lectors has now come to an end. We now had to rely on our string shot to do damage to its shield, which resulted in our death. So we got more food, and we still died. After a 10-minute fight that felt much longer, we finished Act 6. Collei finished Sumeru in 8 hours and 48 minutes. So is she the queen of Sumeru? The results are in, and no. She didn't even beat Chi-Chi. For our grind up to AR40, we did the Trial Grounds of Thunder, but also collected our mushrooms so we could finally ascend up to level 70. Act 1 of Fontaine has us collect some Hydro Flowers. Our Dendro doesn't work here, so we had to teleport and use the Hydrogonus. And for all those people who said that I could have just collected the flowers underwater, I was not able to. So ha, I was right. Now watch me waste 10 minutes of my life teleporting back and forth. Are you kidding me? Now we get to do the underwater domain. With our level 70 ascension, we got a new passive, but it's unfortunate because we can't utilize it at all in Fontaine since every enemy is a mecha. It's a shame because it's really not that bad of a passive. It's actually pretty good. We start Act 5 by revealing that I just lied to you. Not all enemies in Fontaine's Archon Quest are mechas, just everyone besides these 3 rogues. This was also another area where Collei unfortunately died. We went back inside and did a shortcut. And by shortcut, I just mean we targeted the Ruin Guard, since that's all you have to do to beat this domain. When it came to the whale fight, I was just watching our enemy try and chase us down. And it just made me wonder how annoying we must have been to all the enemies in this game.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Like seriously, we just played like a bitch and got rewarded for it. Whether it be from the slingshot or charged attack gameplay, we completed Fontaine by being a coward.
Coward!
After 45 hours, 33 minutes, and 3 seconds, we beat Genshin Impact only using Collei. I was looking forward to this run, and I was a little disappointed, TBH honest. I was excited to see how Dendro would play into this game, considering it wasn't in it for 2 years, and it didn't do too well. But now let's do our character rating. For damage, Collei gets a 4. She gets a 4 for this because she has solid AoE, her abilities do good damage, and the cooldowns aren't that bad. Also, the headshots from charged attack gameplay helped a lot throughout the early and middle game. Exploration, Collei gets a 2. The lack of Dendro pillars present early on in the game is no fault of her own, but it still plays a factor into this consideration. This alone would get her a 1, but since she's a bow character and a medium female, it's a 2. She's faster than the children, and the bow allows her to do certain stuff in the open world that most other weapon types can't. When it comes to sustain, Collei is a 1. She doesn't have any healing, and she has 2 elemental reactions that damage her. Next is boss fights, and Collei gets a 3. Dendro doesn't really shine in any fight in particular. She mainly gets a 3 here because she can play from a distance. Finally are her abilities, which get a 3. Like I mentioned earlier, they are solid abilities with good damage and good Dendro application, but they don't really offer anything outside of the damage, and the Dendro application is only good against enemies in the rain. Overall, Collei gets a 13 out of 25, barely putting her over the halfway point, so I think we'll give her a D. Additionally, she ended with a damage high of 5k, unbuffed was probably around the 3k area. But now that we've done the guaranteed character of both Mondstadt and Sumeru, I think we might just stay in Fontaine for the next character.